recruiting. That's basically it, right?
Yeah, it was something. I think definitely. I mean, I'm surprised, not shocked. Heading into today, these are two recruiting battles Bama was going back and forth for between McKinley Jackson and Ennis Rakestraw, and Mizzou got the best of them on Rakestraw and him on McKinley Jackson. So yeah, that's recruiting. You hate to be wrong with your predictions, but you're not always going to be right when it comes to 17, 18-year-old teenagers' decisions. So I still think Bama has the number 2. Well, they do have the number 2 ranked recruiting class in the country, just behind Georgia. Overall, really strong group that I think Bama fans have a lot to be excited about.
Yeah, there are cats out there that are sort of recruitniks or recruiting junkies and more or less on the fringe of the actual process and the industry. I can tell you this about Hank South and Tim Watts at BamaOnline.com. They are in it. They are knee-deep in it on a daily basis, a minute-to-minute basis. So, when they make calls on these 17, 18-year-old kids, they are taking every bit of information that they've been able to accumulate firsthand. And even then, the key words there, 17 and 18-year-old kids, you don't know exactly how these things are going to play out, and that's sort of the way it went for Alabama this morning. Now, what about Damian George? Alabama did get the 2 signings earlier from the commitments from the early period in Javon Baker and Jamil Burroughs. Anything new on Damian George at this moment, Hank?
Yeah, I don't think it should be overlooked about the importance of getting Javon Baker and Jamil Burroughs signed. Just it happened real early in the morning, so maybe some people overlooked it a little bit. But those two were, working hard in the classroom to be able to sign and, make that progress, be able to enroll this summer. So those are 2 big pickups to add along with the other 2020 signees. But as far as Damian George goes, his signing ceremony began, I believe, at 11 a.m. Central Time in Houston. I have not gotten word that he's officially announced it, but there really shouldn't be much concern as far as where that stands. I fully expected him to announce today that he's already been signed with Alabama since December. So I would expect an announcement there shortly. But no concern as far as where his commitment stands.
Who was the bigger surprise this morning, Ennis Rakestraw to Missouri or McKinley Jackson to A&M?
Yeah, I'd probably say Ennis Rakestraw to Missouri, just because I think talking with guys in our network, the feeling at Missouri was he was likely headed to Alabama. I know the feeling at Texas was he was likely headed to Alabama. So that was generally the thought. When it comes to McKinley Jackson, there were people on both sides feeling Bama had a good shot and A&M had a good shot. So it was really some people thinking it was more of a coin flip. So I think if you had to put a more surprising tag on either of the two, it would be Rakestraw.
Alabama came into the day with an opportunity to jump into that number 1 spot in the 24/7 Sports composite rankings. Looks like that will not happen now, I guess. And if it doesn't, we talked about this earlier in the program, from a need standpoint, from a star power standpoint, even with sort of this quiet finish, Hank, this is a class that I think if you told Nick Saban, never satisfied, we understand that with Nick Saban, but if you had told Nick Saban a year ago that he was going to have this type of class for the 2020 cycle, I think he would have been at least okay with it, Hank.
Oh, absolutely. If you look top to bottom, really the only position you could say maybe left a little to be desired was the tight end spot, and even that, Bama went out last week and added a grad transfer that has a lot of experience at the collegiate level in Carl Tucker from North Carolina. So you get a guy like Bryce Young, a future star quarterback at Alabama, the linebackers class, the running backs class. It's just top to bottom a really, really strong class. I know Chris Hummer with 24/7 Sports did a feature earlier this week grading each position group for the 2020 class, giving each team, grades. And Alabama was rated the best running backs class in the nation of any school, as well as the best linebackers class. We've talked about the linebackers class a lot, and that's including comparing it to, programs like Oregon that got Justin Flo and Noah Sewell, 2 5-star inside linebackers. So it just goes to show, how great this class is. Looking at it, I know Obviously, it feels like December was an eternity ago when they signed that early signing class, and certainly today wasn't the finish Bama fans wanted, but it's a real strong group, and a lot of them are already on campus getting ready for next fall. So I think there should be plenty of excitement around Tuscaloosa today.
An interesting guy throughout this process for the 2020 cycle, Hank, has been Jason Jones, the big lineman from Calera, Alabama, committed to Alabama in early July 2018. And it's just seemed like as the process has worn on, he's become more of an option that could find himself in another class. It looks like Oregon here of late. That being said, have the events of the last day or so, do you think that changes anything with Alabama and Jason Jones, or are you sort of still anticipating the big man ending up perhaps out west?
Yeah, that's a good question, and one we've been, kind of checking in on in the last couple hours since this morning. I still lean towards him likely ending up elsewhere. Oregon's been a popular pick. I still think Georgia Tech's in it. That's a school he's been considering for a long time as well. The biggest thing with him is he just wants to play defensive line. Alabama sees him more as an offensive lineman. There was talk about they're willing to still take him as a blue shirt candidate where he could still be in the class and just, not count until the 2021 cycle. So I never want to say never with recruiting, especially after, what we saw happen this morning. But I still lean towards, Jason Jones likely ending up elsewhere, either Oregon or even maybe Georgia Tech.
No, you're extremely busy. Appreciate you, as always, taking the time with us here on Southern Fried Sports. Thanks a lot, Hank.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Travis.